Hello. My presentation is entitled Entangled Realities Interactive Interfaces, Navigating Ethical Complexities in Refugee Forensic Narratives. This is part of a large research that I'm doing about refugees and their representation in films and the media. So this is another step or stage of this research. I'm very proud to present in this once more at the Interactive Film Media Conference. I'm the founder of this conference, and I'm very proud of the community that we are forming. And I love to participate also as a presenter and also share with you my research. This paper examines how interactive documentaries democratize the art form by empowering marginalized voices, particularly focusing on the complexities and ethical dimensions of projects addressing political violence involving refugees. Key topics including intricacies of user engagement, ethical considerations when representing marginalized populations, their inclusion into this process, and their potential to foster critical reflection and social change. The analysis will focus on the methodologies used by the forensic architecture projects and their impact on the documentation audience interaction. The paper seeks to answer how interactive documentary projects navigate ethical complexities while empowering marginalized and vulnerable populations with critical interpretive tools. Through various case studies, the paper explores the profound impact of participatory documentary making on understanding and addressing political violence issues, advocating for thoughtful and respectful social engagement. So these are some of the questions that I'm going to try to thinking and trying to answer them. That's guided this paper. So how do interactive documentary projects like those by forensic architecture navigate the ethical complexities of representing marginalized populations, particularly refugees, while balancing the need for rigorous documentation and audience engagement? So we're talking about this complexity, how much information we have, and how accessible this information are in the platform they create. What strategies can such projects employ to foster comprehensive understanding among diverse audiences, especially when dealing with complex interfaces and contentious issues such as political violence and harm of human suffering? So we have different target for these projects. So one thing is legal, the other one is the public, general public, the other one is the population that they are focusing in these projects. So we tend to be very diverse public, and also the amount of information and the complexity of this, how this information is presented, also we need to think about it. Because we are kind of perpetuating this political violence and showing them, right? So how can these initiatives empower marginalized and vulnerable populations, equipping them with critical tools for interpretation and engagement, right? So those are some questions that we have in our society in many cases. And here one is very specific about interactive documentary. So I'm going to read the paper, trying to keep my time. I'm very bad at time management, but I will do my best. So while interactivity enables audiences to select content according to their preferences, the interface's design and usability could influence their ability to navigate and comprehend it. This paper focuses on understanding how user actions and decisions are framed within the realm of documentary interactivity and conceptualize the impact of evolving audience behaviors, including their own participants. Kate Nash affirms that interactive documentary functions as a relational entity, emphasize the collective agency of the user, author, and system. This suggests that the interface should facilitate content engagement and promote social interaction among users. Consequently, the complexity of the interface becomes a fundamental factor in mediating these relationships and ensuring accessibility. The capacity for audiences to engage critically with interactive projects by scrutinizing creators' choices underscores the need for an interface designed to foster such engagement, thereby accentuating the interface's role in shaping the audience experience. According to Aston, the term interactive documentary encompasses the emerging possibilities for the construction and representation of reality, enabled by human-computer interactions. Aston argues that interactive documentaries can be accessed through various forms of human-computer interfaces, such as mouse clicks or finger taps. This denotes that the synergy between humans and computational elements inaugurates new pathways for both storytelling and documentary production. While Aston's focus on these interactions and their associated affordances does not explicitly delve into the complexities users face in navigating interactive interfaces, it accentuates the importance of maintaining human involvement in a technological era. According to Manovich's definition, the interface is a particular configuration of space, time, and surface articulated in the work, creating a formal, material, and phenomenological user experience. The argument suggests that human perspectives should be as integral to the design as technological tools. Thus, understanding these new possibilities necessitates digital literacy, accentuating the intricate nature of audience engagement with interactive works. The hypertext navigational approach in forensic architecture interactive projects, the object of this paper, relies heavily on the user's personal interest in the topic to motivate exploration. Although the sense of freedom of action is less significant in these projects, a low level of agency can still result in a substantial experience. However, users might be overly distracted by navigation complexities by the vast array of data, types, and numbers, which can impede their focus on and understanding the content. These projects present and position the user inside a factual plot, asking them to make sense of it through hypertext navigation of meticulous scientific data. Unlike searchable archives or database, these narratives follow specific and precise storylines of historical facts. Exploring and following these narratives may seem straightforward, but the true depth lies in information density and the scrutiny of people's lives and suffering. The story unfolds through various components and sources, such as graphics, imagery, architectural structures, reenactments, and more. This entanglement represents the complexity of achieving the narrative goal of proving their case by navigating through various intricate sources. Aston draws upon Douglas Rushkoff's observation that the human brain requires additional time to adapt when transitioning between different technological media. This cognitive adjustment delay can transform individuals in passive consumers rather than active participants in interactive video experiences. Extending Aston's argument, one might speculate that the challenges posed by overly complex interfaces could further amplify this issue, discouraging user interactivity and fostering a passivity and alienation. Consequently, while in forensic architecture interactive projects aim to scientifically prove their thesis, the complexity and density of their content present significant challenges in maintaining user engagement and ensuring the effective communication of their findings. Projects involve marginalized populations like refugees, raise ethical questions about consent and media literacy. The interactive web-based project Liquid Traces, The Left to Die Both Case from 2012 utilizes various film techniques and research methodologies to convey the gravity of the situation where 72 migrants were stranded in the Mediterranean Sea without aid for 14 days. The project centers around war-torn Libya, providing crucial context for the plot. The internal chaos within Libya caused by terrorist groups sparks an internal war, exacerbating the plight of the stranded migrants. The film portrays the neighboring countries as hostile and unaccommodating towards the migrants, perhaps because they were fleeing from war. The project reviews the failure of Libya to maintain peace within its borders, while also holding external countries like Tunisia, Egypt, and Turkey responsible for contributing to the chaos in Libya. Moreover, Western countries within NATO, the US, and the UK are also shown as responsible for the external attacks on Libya, ultimately leading to the migrants fleeing to Italy. Thus, the project emphasizes how the Western countries failed to rescue the survivors who were dying at sea. Despite its effectiveness in conveying the severity of the situation, Liquid Traces can be overwhelming for some audiences due to the complexity of its plot and the number of factors at play. However, using interactive web-based strategies enhances the project's impact and enables users to explore the different angles of the story. Liquid Traces exposes the complexities of the refugee crisis and the political factors while raising awareness and making countries accountable for the dire conditions that migrants face when fleeing war and seeking asylum. They also seek to encourage viewers to take action and advocate for better policies that protect the rights of migrants and refugees in these countries. The project uses scientific data and facts to provide a compelling narrative that exposes the harsh realities of the human rights violations committed against migrants, which in the ultimate case serve as visible and audio violence for further juridical actions. The film effectively conveys the humane treatment of these migrants by all the Mediterranean countries involved. The meticulous attention to detail and the use of data and facts to tell the story make this project both particularly engaging and frustrating for the user. The filmmakers skillfully demonstrate their case through interviews, footage, and expert analysis. The project's approach engages the audience by proving their thesis and provides a valuable educational resource. The web-based project associated with the film provides extensive resource that composes the documentary with additional materials, including behind-the-scenes footage, follow-up reports, forums, and legal proceedings. The project aims to amass sufficient empirical evidence to identify and legally prosecute those responsible for the maritime tragedies, thereby holding them accountable in a court of law. Its title, Liquid Traces, captures the audience's attention by highlighting the inherent challenge of recovering traces of individuals lost at sea, while also underscoring the possibility of overwhelming these challenges. The project employs fluid dynamic simulations to trace the movements of particles through space, whether particles from a bomb cloud, gunpowder from a gunshot, or sea currents and waves. Additionally, the researchers use a methodology called remote sensing. When they cannot access the incident site, in such cases, they rely on remote data such as satellite and aerial images. They can identify changes on the ground by conducting comparative analysis of before and after images. Different optical bands and graphic indicators such as normalized differential vegetation index provide detailed information from a distance. This multifaceted approach allows for a comprehensive investigation despite the lack of direct access to the incident locations. Liquid Traces is one of the projects from the Interdisciplinary Research Agency for Forensic Architecture based at Goldsmiths, University of London. The agency established a groundbreaking initiative that employs cutting-edge techniques to expose human rights violations and promote social justice. As suggested by Professor Weissman, the project's idealizer, architecture functions as both a sensor and an agent capable of detecting and responding to political force fields. By employing architectural methods and innovative sensing technologies, the project seeks to uncover the underlying logic of violent conflict. In doing so, it raises a range of conceptual challenges related to boundaries of vision, justice, ethics, and the interpretation of law. Through these resources, their projects provide a more comprehensive understanding of the events depicted and the more significant political and social issues at play. Forensic architecture employs multiple and more complex methodologies to document the non-assistance of migrants at sea. They repurpose satellite imagery, including synthetic aperture radar, to confirm the presence of numerous ships near the drifting migrants' boat, using this disobedient gaze to expose the violence of the border regime. Oceanography techniques track the boat's trajectory through winds and currents. Various sensing technologies such as thermal cameras and radars convert physical conditions into digital data, redefining the Mediterranean as an electromagnetic field. Analyzing automatic identification system data alongside SAR imagery allows forensic oceanography to identify military ships by noting which large vessels were unaccounted for, despite inconsistencies in AIS data. In a later project entitled Shipwrecked at the Threshold of Europe Levels Agency, an incident that happened in 2015, the investigators, in collaboration with images provided by refugee Amel Alzagood, focused on assigning culpability to Greek and European Union authorities for their inadequate response, which resulted in 43 drownings. As the project illustrates, the border patrols arrived on the scene but failed to lead to the rescue operations. Forensic architecture argues that the negligence was intentional, a form of active oversight as described in the project. The conclusion is that the border patrols are not intended to rescue people, but to deter them. The hide holes of their ships made it impossible for people to climb aboard or be pulled up. The crews lacked the proper rescue equipment, and their training did not even include CPR. Although the shipwreck occurred in European Union waters, making them responsible, the dispatched forces were neither equipped nor intended to prevent the deaths. Pushback across the Avros is another comprehensive project from forensic architecture, focusing on the refugee crisis in Europe. Applying similar strategies and techniques as liquid traces and shipwreck, this series of projects investigate individual stories of asylum seekers attempting to cross the border between Greece and Turkey, only to be pushed back by Greek authorities. However, in this case, witnesses have provided explicit accounts of the detention facilities, the vehicles used for transportations, the locations where they were forced to cross rivers, the prevailing weather conditions, and even detailed descriptions of the clothing and equipment of the personnel enforcing the pushbacks. The situated testimony methodology, pioneered by the research group Forensic Architecture, employs 3D modeling reconstructions of the sites, geolocation, fieldwork, and conditions where traumatic incidents occurred. This technique aids in gathering testimony from witnesses by helping them recall elusive or distorted memories. Witnesses work with an architectural researcher, reconstructing and exploring an event in a controlled and secure environment, which enhances their recollection. This facilitates dialogue and testimony collection from victims who are recorded recounting an incident scenario in collaboration with an architectural investigator to explore and recall their experiences safely. Through a combination of drawings, photos, interviews, and satellite imagery, the investigators meticulously retrace and reenact the journeys of these individuals to expose the disturbing and inhumane treatment they endure and the blatant human rights violations committed by these countries. The project's researchers have verified these testimonies by meticulously using all this data. This has enabled the identification of key locations and implicated parties, including Greek police, border agents, military personnel, civilians, and non-Greek agents. This project significantly advanced the cause of achieving justice for these human rights violations. Until now, tangible evidence of these practices was scarce, due largely to the routine confiscation of personnel, documents, and devices. However, the corroboration of these detailed testimonies has now unequivocally revealed that the pushback operations in the area are not only deliberate, but also widespread, thereby shedding light on the alarming gravity of the situation. While the abundance of technical details can be overwhelming, they serve as vital evidence for legal proceedings and provide a far-reaching understanding of the events and individuals involved. By employing a multi-layered approach that combines cutting-edge technology with personnel accounts, pushback across the Avros presents a powerful critique of the systematic injustice and human rights violations asylum seekers face at the hands of state authorities. However, these descriptions and testimonies focus on refugee struggles, putting the project under scrutiny of the ethical issues regarding these witnesses' exposure and traumatic reconstitutions of their recalls. Moreover, the project's website expanded discourse by providing various supplementary materials such as in-depth reports, cartographic representations, and legal analysis. These elements enhance the salience of the cases under scrutiny and underscore the imperative nature of tackling these urgent matters. These initiatives rank among the most comprehensive projects elucidating refugees, critical challenges, and calling for decisive action from authorities and entities. However, questions remain concerning the extent to which refugees, both as subjects and contributors within these projects, can fully comprehend the intricate layers of these initiatives. Similarly, the capacity of the general audience to grasp the complexities entangled within the wealth of information remains an area of concern. Additional questions deserve more attention, particularly concerning the project's format. If the main goal is legal accountability, an interactive multimedia platform could recast the project as digital media activism aimed at capturing mainstream attention. This choice invites scrutiny and prompts us to reconsider the project's original objectives. Digital media activism brings both spotlight and risk to involved individuals in communities. While visibility can garner support, it also exposes subjects to risks like harassment and misrepresentation. Ethical questions arise. Are subjects who are also co-creators often unaware of the full scope of what they are creating, aware of the potential risks and implications of heightened media scrutiny? The level of awareness and consent may vary in projects involving vulnerable populations. For example, complex platforms like forensic architecture demand high media literacy, complicating the ethical landscape. Thus, key ethical considerations include ensuring subjects are informed of both risks and benefits of identifying protective measures to mitigate harm. These concerns are essential for anyone engaged in digital media activism. As interactive documentaries increasingly employ multi-layered narratives and complex interfaces, the demand for a nuanced spectrum of literacies, ranging from media literacy to technological literacy, grows more urgent. Interactive documentary projects offer a new and unique platform for storytelling, with a wide range of features and tools that allow for the fragmentation and reimagining of traditional narratives. However, this fragmentation can sometimes lead to a confusing, challenging navigational experiences for viewers, making it difficult to follow the narrative thread or retrieve previous information. This is especially true for audiences with varying degrees of media literacy who may need help to engage with contentious issues presented in interactive documentaries. As society increasingly relies on the public to form reasonable opinions and engage in political issues, it becomes essential to consider how people consume news in media. Media polarization can lead to a lack of objectivity, making it difficult for viewers to form an informed opinion. This is where interactive documentaries can play a vital role in providing nuanced and complex perspective on political and social issues. Using various interactive features and tools, documentary filmmakers and interactive creators can create a more engaging, immersive experience for viewers, encouraging them to think critically and participate more effectively in these issues presented. What strategies can such projects employ to foster a nuanced spectrum of literacy that extend beyond traditional understandings, particularly in the ever-evolved realms of new technologies and interactive media? How can these endeavors meaningfully empower marginalized and vulnerable populations such as refugees, equipping them with critical tools for interpretation and engagement? While the integration of emerging technologies and interactive platforms can offer transformative opportunities for engagement, it presents a dual-edged sword. Such innovations can either facilitate critical interaction or perpetuate alienation, thereby extending the digital divide, exploiting political vulnerabilities such as the loss of citizenship for many refugees, and raising substantial ethical dilemmas, including the perpetuation of political violence by reviving those incidents. Here an example, Shipwreck at the Threshold of Europe, Laswell's agency. Let's take a look in one excerpt.
One of the passengers on this ship was a Syrian woman called Amal al-Jakut, traveling with her friend. Amal documented her route using a wrist-mounted waterproof camera. Her footage captured the crossing from the unique perspective of those drowning at the maritime borders of the European Union. Now based in Berlin, Amal asked forensic architecture to help reconstruct the incident and its aftermath. Together, we tried to understand how such a deadly shipwreck could occur in a narrow strip of water so densely populated and heavily monitored by EU agencies. We looked at the actions of those involved: smugglers, national coast guards, the European Border Agency Frontex, as well as civilian rescuers such as local fishermen and activists. Our analysis shows that this tragedy is the result of government policies that intend to police and repel migrants rather than setting out to assure their safety. Because her camera occasionally switched off, Amal's footage includes a sequence of 21 clips with time gaps in between. The time encoded in the camera's metadata was incorrect. As a result, we could only sequence her videos and establish their relative times. By sampling a vertical strip of pixels from every frame, we reconstructed a visual diagram of each clip. The color reveals all the moments that Amal's hand was underwater.
Actually, these scenes, they testimony the death of 42 refugees, asylum seekers. This other project called Driftbacks in the Ancient Sea. Let me find the right cue. Investigators document a practice known as driftbacks, where asylum seekers are abandoned at sea. This routine occurrence between Greece and Turkey often results in injuries and drownings. The scale and severity of driftbacks continue to increase while the authorities weaponize the sea's archipelago geography. Originally published on July 15, 2022, the project was updated on January 19 this year to include over 1,000 additional cases, bringing the total to over 2,000 incidents. Between March 2020 and March 2023, these incidents resulted in the expulsion of 55,000 people, 24 deaths, and 17 disappearances. As the project emphasizes, driftbacks are manifestly illegal and contravene international protocols, including the inalienable rights to apply for asylum and to seek rescue at sea. According to its mission statement, the platform aims to aid ongoing legal proceedings in local European courts, enable independent monitoring, reporting, and advocacy, and address increasing demands for accountability and international calls to reallocate funds from border guards and Frontex. Also, the platform is designed as a continually evolving tool for mapping these cases with regular updates planned for as long as this practice persists. Due to the large amount of evidence in numerous cases, the project's interface has become more complex and comprehensive, featuring search options by actors, islands, violations, and categories. These categories are classified as verified, documented, or trajectory based on evidence evaluation procedures. Verified cases are geolocated with high confidence or confirmed through visual material and cross-referencing. Documented cases have enough material to suggest a driftback, but lack full corroboration. Trajectory cases involve multiple locations mapping a group's movement in space and time. Collaboration with asylum seekers is the core of this project. Thousands of pieces of evidence come from different and sometimes contested sources, which provide the data and proof for the stories and incidents. Let's take a look in one clip from this video.
On uninhabited rocks. This new mode of illegal and dangerous expulsion that weaponizes the geography of the Aegean archipelago has come to be called driftbacks. To evidence this practice, we collected, verified, timestamped, and geolocated thousands of videos, images, and GPS locations searched by asylum seekers. We sieved through operational documents and court files, conducted interviews with survivors and relatives of people who drowned in the Aegean, and visited locations where groups went missing to find and document the physical traces of their landings. In this way, we gathered and compared different sources, capturing a single event, matching groups of people who disappeared from Greek islands and reappeared drifting in Turkish waters. Locating evidence for over 1,000 driftbacks in the span of 2 years, this platform is the most complete documentation of one of Europe's most cruel border management practices. Events can be filtered by location, type of violation, actor, or evidence, exposing and mapping the widespread, systematic, and violent nature of driftbacks in its true scale.
So you can see how complex is this platform and how extensive is this work. So visitors to the platform can filter by date, location, events, transform the web-based documentary into an ongoing mapping database with detailed numbers and specifications. Based on 2010 cases now, this is the actual number, the project has inherent challenges for users who may need more expertise or interactive media literacy, hindering their ability to engage with intricate narratives fully. The shortfall could result in a diminished capacity to comprehend the multi-layered stories presented, constraining their ability to make well-informed judgments about the narrative's meaning and societal implications. Emerging interactive forms challenge the conventional norms of documentary making, democratizing the art form by allowing previously marginalized voices to speak and encouraging audiences to engage actively and contribute their voices. According to Nash, these interactive projects emphasize the audience's active role in shaping a narrative by contrasting the concepts of voice as authorship, the ability of participants to share in decision-making, and voice as social participation, the ability to connect and engage with others. Documentaries are no longer static, but an ongoing dialectic process allowing interactors to shape the story. This approach blends the appeal of influence and choice with the challenge of balancing the filmmaker's vision and user autonomy. However, the subjective bias of a documentarian influences the narrative arc from the moment the documentary is conceptualized. This predetermined nature of interactor choices is designed to move the audience toward a specific understanding, hindering them from achieving a completely unbiased perception. That's the case of forensic architecture. Proposed approaches to navigating this obstacle include engaging a diverse assembly of creators, increasing viewpoints and perspectives, and adopting a user-centered design approach. This method offers viewers a more authentic exploratory space to critique a documentary. Nash suggests that the creation of community itself becomes an explicit part of the production process. Involving audiences connects them to the story and allows them to share their own experiences. This is a very good example, like the drift, particularly when dealing with political violence and the lives of real people. Interactive projects focusing on refugees exemplify these principles by inviting audiences to engage deeply with the narratives of displaced individuals. The act of interacting with these stories affects people's perception of these stories' outcomes, emphasizing the profound impact of participatory documentary making on understanding and addressing issues of political violence. By creating space for dialogue and reflection, these projects enable viewers to consider their roles and responsibilities in the broader context of political and social crisis, ultimately fostering a more empathetic and informed public. However, engaging with these stories of refugees can also raise ethical concerns. While it can foster empathy and awareness, it risks perpetuating the very violence it seeks to expose if not handled with care. This is an example of one of the contributions that you can see. The interaction might commodify suffering or reduce complex lives to simplistic narratives. This dilemma underscores the importance of approaching such projects with authenticity, sensitivity, and respect for the subject's agency and dignity. So this is an example of how much information is provided online. So this is from the Turkish government, so anyone can go to this website. The link to this website is from the project Driftback. And here you can see very recent events. So you download, so you can see, can have access to this information, video, photos, and text. So audiences must critically reflect on their engagement, ensuring that their involvement does not merely consume stories of suffering, but actively contributes to meaningful change and justice. According to Sandra Gaudens, the conversational mode is particularly effective when placing participants in front of hypothetical ethical choices or situations they might never encounter in their lives. This mode contrasts with the hypertext mode, where reality is no longer co-created through mutual conversation between the user and the author via the media, but rather presented as a set of possibilities where the user is explored, like these projects, right? So it's completely hypertext type of experience. This deterministic view suggests that our choices are never completely ours, and the best we can do is select from options provided by others. In hypertext documentaries, users have freedom of exploration and interpretation, but no freedom of action. While a high level of agency is essential in conversational, experiential, and participatory documentaries, in hypertext documentaries, what counts more is the presence of an interesting narrative or a compelling topic that can be explored by the user. Even though hypertext documentaries have what Gaudens defined as a low level of interactivity, the interaction and contemplation they offer still hold ethical significance. The navigation and exploration of multiple sources and detailed information in these projects can overwhelm the interactor. So from my point of view, when we deal with political violence, it's more engaged than ever, the audience, the interactor, even though we have this, what Gaudens called low-level interactivity. The meticulous engagement is crucial for fostering a deep understanding of the issues presented. It challenges users to critically engage with the material, reflecting on their role in the broader context of political violence and social justice. The balance between providing a rich, exploratory environment and ensuring that this engagement leads to meaningful reflection and action remains a key challenge for creators of interactive documentaries. In interactive documentaries, the audience is placed in a position where they must navigate ethical choices and confront the realities of political violence. This engagement requires a high degree of sensitivity and responsibility. As participants interact with these stories, they are compelled to reflect on the role and witnessing and responding to depicted violence, encouraging viewers to think critically about the social and political context of the violence. And Shipwrecked and Threshold of Europe levels and agency, viewers witness the harrowing real-time drowning of over 40 refugees through footage captured by a waterproof camera attached to a refugee's wrist. Despite intermittent recording, the camera documents the boat's descent into agency and the prolonged hours the shipwrecked passengers spent in the water waiting rescue. Complementing this personal footage, the project also employs infrared imagery shot by artist Richard Mose, satellite images and photographs to provide multimedia evidence of tragedy that authorities sought. And this is what it was showing to you, right? Such projects involve political violence and refugees highlight the critical importance of active audience engagement. These documentaries can reshape perceptions and inspire social change by fostering dialogue and critical reflection. However, there is a fine line between raising awareness and commodifying suffering, which can lead to oversimplified portrayals of complex lives. Therefore, creators and audiences must approach these projects with authenticity.
One of the passengers on this ship was a Syrian woman called.
So this is some of these scenes under the water while some refugees are drowning. So through thoughtful, respectful engagement, participation can transcend mere consumption of suffering, contributing instead to meaningful change and justice, encouraging a deeper understanding of the nuanced ethical dimensions involved in documentary responding to political violence. The refugees video recording exemplifies Voice's authorship as described by Nash, where their contributions influence the documentary's narrative by adding both structural and content-focused elements. This form of participation represents a true collaboration, placing the refugees' perspective at the core of the interactive project. By directly incorporating their voices and experiences, the documentary not only enriches its narrative, but also empowers the participants, making them co-creators of the story. This collaborative approach challenges traditional power dynamics in documentary filmmaking, fostering a more inclusive and authentic representation of political violence and human suffering. However, in these forensic or interactive narratives, the minutiae of the proofs presented deeply scrutinize the lives and suffering of refugees, much like evidence in a court case. This meticulous documentation can prolong their suffering and expose intimate details about their lives, deaths, contributing, or the violation of their privacy rights. Such in-depth scrutiny risks exploiting and appropriating the refugees' personal narratives, contributing to another human rights violation by publicly exposing their trauma and by viewing this trauma. In a certain sense, we are violating their rights. And we also committing this political violence. In this context, the audience also becomes complicit through their viewership, potentially corroborating the exploitation of these individuals' stories and suffering for public consumption. This dynamic raises critical questions about the ethical responsibility of both creators and viewers in the consumption and dissemination of narratives involving political violence and human rights abuses. So it's something that we always deal every day, how we're going to denounce the situation and not showing their suffering. So through this paper, analysis highlights that while interactive platforms like those developed by forensic architecture provide a unique and compelling method for documenting human rights violations, they also present significant challenges. The complexity of these interfaces can impede user comprehension engagement, necessitating a balance between detailed documentation and accessible design. Furthermore, these projects must navigate the ethical complexities of representing marginalized populations, ensuring that they do not perpetuate the very violence they seek to expose. The dual-edged nature of emerging technologies in these contexts cannot be ignored. While they offer transformative opportunities for engagement, they also risk alienating users, extending the digital divide, and raising substantial ethical dilemmas. These projects must continuously evaluate and address these challenges to ensure they contribute positively to the discourse on political violence and human rights. In conclusion, interactive documentaries hold the potential to reshape our understanding in response to complex social issues. By approaching these projects with authenticity, sensitivity, and commitment to ethical practices, creators and audiences alike can work towards meaningful change and justice. The ongoing evolution of these narratives will depend on our collective ability to engage thoughtfully and responsibly with the powerful stories they tell. Thank you very much.